we bought the McMillan home on Main Street. It was built in 1879, and it's an addition to an 1850s cabin. And Mr. James McMillan was a third-generation Cobb Countyan. His family had come to Mars Hill community, which is actually older than Ackworth. They came in the land lotteries in the 30s, and during the land lotteries, we gave preferential treatment to American Revolution veterans. And so his grandfather was a veteran. But by the time the third generation, which was the 1870s and 1880s, the farm just could not support 3 full families. So that his range of brothers, and there were at least 3 more boys and 3 more girls, I believe, but many of them came to the city, which was Ackworth, to seek their fortune. And they really were that first wave moving from the agrarian farm life to city life. James McMillan went in business with Jesse Lemon, who was his brother-in-law. His older sister was married to Jesse Lemon, and eventually opened his own McMillan. And they were a mercantile store, and they were located where Wild Blossoms is today. And then they expanded to the department store. John Columbus Armstrong, who was a builder here in Ackworth and still have descendants here, he enlarged the store, and we believe he was instrumental in building my house because it has many of the same elements that the Armstrong has. It was a lot of fun rehabbing the house. First, I was lucky enough to have an architect who was very historic preservation minded and an engineer. So once they determined it was sound, it had good bones, the rehab was really, I spent more time taking faux history out of the house and debris. So we got it back to its natural state. And we were guided because during the rehab, the sisters, 3 McMillan descendant sisters who had lived in the house, actually were at Liberty Hill Cemetery for a family reunion, and they knocked on our door. So we made friends, they brought me pictures, and so we were able to use a lot of that information. Historic preservation had a real strong supporting group of people in the 80s, in the 1980s, but many had moved away, and interest seemed to have waned, and it was not politically a priority. There were a couple of shops, a rundown cafe of sorts, but not a real vital downtown. And so the infrastructure for good historic preservation was already in place. It just wasn't being utilized. We started it and could get the Rosenwald School back open because it has a wonderful story. It was condemned and slated to be demolished in 1948 by Cobb County Board of Education. They were it was the last of that Jim Crow era where they were trying to do separate but equal. So they were going to tear down the Rosenwald School and build the Roberts School. And the black community here, as well as the white community, had actually raised funds. That was the unique part of the Rosenwald Fund. The community had to come up with land and had to come up with a good bit of the money, and then it could be matched and plans furnished by the Rosenwald School and technical expertise. So the community had been very active in getting the Rosenwald School in the 20s. So when it was scheduled 20 years later to be demolished, they asked the Board of Education to let them have it. So they dismantled it, numbered its planks and boards, loaded it onto wagons, and brought it down that school street and reconstructed it on the site that it is on now. People enjoy the quaint sense of a home place, a sense of stepping back in time, and visually it's very attractive and very soothing. We in Ackworth have been indeed fortunate that because of I-75 and 41, a lot of the sprawl jumped us because of the lake and the confines of the lake. And so we kind of have the best of all worlds. We have our quaint historic core, both business and residential. And then over on 41, we have every big name box chain that you would ever want to see. I have always had a firm belief that there really are three fundamental parts for a good community, and that's really sensitive elected officials, and then they can influence our paid staff. But the bottom of that triangle is always community activism.